Alright guys, so this was another fanfiction idea, and this one was actually voted on. Again, this was one that was voted on my poll. I'd like to thank everyone who voted in the poll over on Patreon. And if you guys would like to be part of said polls, just hit the link below, head on to my Patreon. That's just the first tier. That'll also allow you to access to all the poll videos over on there as well as whenever I do movie or show reviews. Like I said, I haven't really done any movie reviews, I know, this month or the previous. It's mostly because there's nothing really out that really stands out to me that makes me go, yeah, I want to check that out. I want to see it. But come March, that's when the floodgates are going to open, because like March and April alone are going to give me enough movies I want to watch to really like be like, oh yeah, let's go. Although I do think The Fall Guy got bumped up to last week of the month, so I might review that. If I don't see it Thursday, I'll see it first of March, whatever. You know what I meant. Anyway, so yeah, so this one kind of came down to a draw, like a tie between one and another, so I had to play tiebreaker, and we're going to be doing Alien versus Predator versus Star Trek. The poll was a Star Trek crossover, and this one, basically because of I picked tiebreaker, that's the rules, it beat out Superman, Tenchi Muyo, Mass Effect, Ninja Turtles, and Voltron Legendary Defenders. Yeah, so here we are, Star Trek versus Alien versus Predator. Now, it's interesting to note that back in 2017, there was supposed to be a Star Trek Aliens crossover from IDW and Dark Horse Books. Like, yeah, IDW announced it and everything. Like, they had hype for it. It was going to be written by the Tiptons, the Tipton brothers, who had done Star Trek Planet of the Apes, as well as the Star Trek TNG Doctor Who crossover, and they also did the Q conflict, so they knew their way around Star Trek crossovers. I have a love-hate relationship with the Tiptons personally, but that's another story entirely. With the Tiptons, but yeah, that's, like I said, it's a story for another time. But then, shortly after the announcement, because it was supposed to come out in April of 2017, April 2017 was when it was supposed to come out, but then it basically got canceled. Like, it basically got canceled, and they didn't really give a reason why. Although a lot of people speculate that one of the reasons why it didn't go through, even though it got okayed, was because of the buyout by Disney. That was probably the Fox buyout from Disney from, the Fox buyout from Disney, and they were just like, fuck you, Paramount, we're going to take Alien Predator away from Dark Horse, so you can't do this crossover anymore. And Paramount's probably like, fuck you! So that's really it. Like, I think that was the main case, is that, because that's the thing, even though, I know some people think that, like, crossovers can just be done willy-nilly, intercompany crossovers can be done willy-nilly between companies with very little pushback among comic companies, but when it's an IP like Star Trek or like Power Rangers or Godzilla or something like that, it has to be run through the IP's owner. So that's why the Star Trek Doctor Who crossover took so long, and kind of inevitably was the reason why IDW lost the Doctor Who comics to Titan books. Although that one's more speculation, if anything, of that reason. But yeah, it really got to go through the channel, so that crossover never happened. So this is basically my pitch for a crossover, and we're 4 minutes in. Let's get into it. Anyway, so the story begins, and also if you're wondering where this is Star Trek TNG. So we are on the Enterprise, and Picard is taking a captain's log, and he's just basically saying, like, the Enterprise is en route to a research colony on a newly colonized Federation planet, and they've actually called in a distress signal. They made some kind of ecological discovery, and they've encountered a life form that they've never encountered before, and they need help. So the Enterprise is going there, and for whatever reason, like the they are trying to figure out what the colony is trying. Sorry, it's been a long day and I'm a little tongue tied. So basically, Picard is gathered his all of his officers together for a meeting, and they're kind of debriefing. They're kind of on a mission brief of what this colony was digging into. They essentially discover that what they were looking for was that it was an archaeological dig on this planet, because long ago this used to be a planet that belonged to a mega corporation that was destroyed during World War III. We're kind of tying that all together, you see. Even though, yes, I know the timelines don't exactly work right, but just follow me. If the Autobots and Decepticons can just show up after during World War III, I guess this could work too. So more or less, this planet used to belong. It used to be a colony ages ago, called Hadley's Hope, and the records are kind of sketchy because they were all lost during the events of World War III. But this colony was just vanished. Like, it literally just vanished without a trace. Like, the colonists before it just vanished without a trace. And before that, the planet only went by a name of LV-426. So, the planet now has, the planet still has that designation for now. But, yeah. So the Enterprise is going to this location, and they're just, they're worried because all they know, it's an unknown biological organism. It's some kind of new organism. So they're not aware if it's like a parasite or a contagion or an animal. They're unaware. So they're going in ready for anything. So they bring along a new character that I created for this story called Dr. Hampton. And Hampton, she is the ship's biologist. She's basically a zoologist. I was about to say biologist, but yeah, zoologist that has been brought on recently to help study unknown animals that the Enterprise might encounter, like unknown wildlife. Not like sentient, not like intelligent life forms. I'm talking like actual like animal life they would encounter on different planets. So Hampton's brought with them, and she's curious about it because she's heard like the stories of LV-426. Like there was an unknown life form that rumor has it was the reason why the colonists of Hadley's Hope went missing. And Picard talks about ages ago, there was eons ago there were, not eons, but like thousands of years ago, there was a colony in the Americas called Roanoke, and those people went missing, and the only thing left was Croatoan etched on a tree. And Hampton goes, well, maybe this is our new Roanoke, and he goes, I hope not. So Picard, Hampton, Data, Worf, and Riker go down to the planet. Not Data, but Crusher, excuse me. Data's left in charge of the ship, and the rest of them go down. They beam down to the planet, and it's a ghost town. Like, it's a straight-up ghost town, but already they're seeing, like, signs of combat. Like, something came through here and just slaughtered the place. So they're looking around. They've got phasers drawn, but they're at stun right now. And they find their way to, like, all of these like houses and things like that, and there's slime and like blood, and there's like holes eaten through, and they're like, a phaser wouldn't like bust a hole like in this. It's like someone threw acid at the wall. And they're trying to figure out where everyone is. Like, they're thinking, like, was this an animal, or was this like an attack from the Cardassians or the Romulans? What happened? And it isn't until like further investigation that they discover some survivors stuck to the wall. Like, there's a family they find, and they immediately like cut them down, and they're like, Crusher's checking vitals and making sure they're alive. But she's like, there's some kind of obstruction in their bodies. I need to get them to sickbay immediately. And Picard, even though he's worried about like there could be a contagion, he's like, all right, do it, but put them in quarantine. So they get so Crusher beams up with the family, while they're like all just disoriented. They can't really explain what happened, but she's like, yeah, there's some kind of she like scanned them tricorder. There's an obstruction in there. I need to get it out. So they go. Meanwhile, everyone else, like, they eventually find their way to a research lab, and they find, like, yeah, this was where the archaeological site was, basically like the base camp for wherever they were digging. So Picard and the others are going through records, and they discover that they did dig up something, and it's the engineer's ship. And what they find are these eggs, and they're like, this should not be, like, in the video, in the recordings, they're like listening to like scientists go, these eggs, we've carbon dated some of them, they should not be, like, they still feel like they have, like, we've scanned it, there's still viable life inside them. Our only guess is that the environment from that ship, not to mention the humidity of this cave system, has left them to be, like, perfectly preserved. So yeah, so they basically said, yeah, we took a couple eggs with us, and we're gonna like dissect the eggs and see what kind of life was in them. Maybe it'll help us better understand. And you can probably guess the rest. Face huggers and then xenomorphs everywhere. But yeah, now the other thing is, like, during those recordings, they're like recording the first person that got face hugged, and they like see the chest bursting surgery, and they're like, oh shit. Like, Picard and the others like, oh shit, we gotta warn Beverly and the Enterprise that those things are gonna be on the ship. So, but, however, before they can, like, you know, send a message, Worf, like, notices, like, 3 little dots aimed at Picard's head, and he's like, get down, Captain! It just pushes him down, plasma bolt comes in, everyone, like, draws phasers and are, like, getting ready to fire, but there's just, like, a shadow that like, it's just a quick image of, or something they think they see, and it leaves. And, yeah, and they're like, well, we're not alone on this planet. Do you think it's what it killed the people here? And Worf's like, no, I think it's something else, Captain. So, there's a problem when they finally, like, yeah, let's call the Enterprise. So they try to call the Enterprise, but there's like interference. Turns out there is another ship that is perfectly cloaked, and it's jamming the ship's communication. Not good. Not good at all. So what happened is that a hunting party of predators were alerted to the existence of a xenomorph nest. And they basically heard, like, signal, like, they weren't, like, when that distress signal came out, the predators, like, picked up on that signal, or like, Xenos, let's go. So they got there roughly the same time as the Enterprise did. They're not being picked up because their ship's cloaked, but they're like, all right, we're gonna go down there, kill some Xenos, maybe kill these humans too. And what else is there? So there is now Picard and the others are being tracked by predators, by a hunting party of predators, and now the xenomorphs are coming out at night. So now they have to, like, now it's a survival story of them trying to, you know, survive the night. Meanwhile, you have Beverly, who's trying to do surgeries, chest buster comes out, and now there's like 3 or 4 chest busters / xenomorphs free on the Enterprise. So Data has to deal with that. And it's just absolute chaos. Like, the other thing is, like, I wanted to have, because the thing with the description of the Star Trek Alien crossover that IDW and Dark Horse were going to do was that it was going to involve, like, the Borg and the Romulans and the Klingons, and I was like, you're just doing that so you can get, you know, xenomorph hybrids of characters. And so I don't need a Borg morph. I just, like, one will do. So they also discover, Picard and the others discover that there was something else that happened on this colony. more or less what happened is that, like I said, the zoologist, Dr. Hampton, calls Picard over and is like, I've been going through the records, you need to see this. The head of the colony, was so obsessed with this, with these xenomorphs. Not because he's Bishop or he's related to Weyland-Yutani. He was just like, he was selling weapons on the side, on the black market, to, warlords and other races behind the Federation's back. And he had the idea of selling these xenomorphs to the highest bidder, that being at the time the Romulans, who wanted to use them as a bioweapon against the Klingons. And they're like, well, let's see what they do against a Klingon. So in secret, the Romulans sent a Klingon prisoner that they had. He gets face hugged, he got chest bursted, and now there's one big Klingon xenomorph who is just, it looks like a xenomorph, but he's bigger, he's like 8 feet tall, he's bulkier, and he has like the Klingon head ridge all the way up his head. So it's not too dissimilar. I didn't want it to be too like outlandish, but yeah. So Worf is pissed off because he's like, this what they did was dishonorable to this man. And you have the Predators, who are also curious because they're like, yeah, we've hunted, like it's revealed they've hunted Klingons before. They've done battle with the Klingons and other races, and the reason why, like, Picard is like that, like, these creatures sound so similar, and he talks about, like, long ago there was rumors of like these Federation logs had these lost recordings of these masked hunters who stalked humanity in like times of like conflict and heat. So we're in the middle of a war now. So it's just a giant horror story that's a lot less complicated. You basically have two stories going on. You have the Picard story of him and his team battling the xenomorphs and the Yautja on the planet and trying to get back in contact with the Enterprise. And meanwhile, you have the Enterprise, who's now dealing with a bunch of xenomorphs on the Enterprise, but also they're dealing with the Predator ship that is locked in combat with the Enterprise. So that's basically your story right there. Eventually, yes, the Data does manage to purge the xenomorphs with the help of the other crew, even though we get some red shirts killed. And the crew I would love to have like a fight between Worf and a Predator. That fight alone would be awesome. Then you have them get back on board. The Predator ship's destroyed, and Picard recommends at first he recommends like the planet just get glassed, like just drop some photon torpedoes and bombard the site and kill the xenomorphs. But Hampton's like, she's basically like says, no, Captain, you can't kill them. And he's like, why not? And that's when he's like Hampton basically explains like, these animals are you could call these animals monsters, but they're not. They're, like I said, they're just they're just animals. They're back on Earth we have like sharks and bears and tigers, and when they kill humans, are they monsters? No. They're no different from what if an ant was the size of a human. These animals aren't evil. They're just doing what they've been, they're just doing as what they would do by their nature. They're not malicious. These species need to be protected. And he's like, I would not say that to the family of the family of the lost ones in that colony, but Picard does say, like, rather than just bombard the planet, he does highly recommend the Federation quarantines the planet so no one goes there again. So there you go. That's the story. That's Star Trek versus Alien versus Predator. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for voting on this one. And you guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of it? Comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in Multiverse.